Okay, John, thank you so much for coming back with us. We spoke to you back in September when the program had launched on BTWB. You are extremely well known in the CrossFit space, and you just launched a program specializing in Hyrox on BTWB. So we're excited to have you back to chat about all things Hyrox and hopefully answer a bunch of questions for people and talk about more about your program on BTWB as well. So welcome.
Well, yeah, thank you for having me back on. It's always nice to be a repeat guest.
Hmm.
So
So
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I wanted to kick it off with a question of I was talking to a gym owner during the Rogue Invitational, and we were talking about how um, it's like they have like a kitchen with all the supplies that you need to cook this high rocks meal. Kind of like that it's not a very big lift to at least experiment and try with it. And I think with somebody like a program like yours, just offering actual even gym programming for it, like what would you say it's like, okay, what are the steps you need, assuming the programming part is done now? Because you're offering that. And I think in general, probably in the space that's going to get more popular because the same exists for powerlifting, for bodybuilding. A lot of people are paying for programming for those specific classes. I would love to know your thoughts on, okay, so, in your brain, in your mind, you have a checklist of programming check. What are the next kind of things you have to do to get a class going?
So I actually think the big thing is interest from the members, and I think this is one thing that Hyrox has been doing very well. It's becoming more popular. We're not only seeing the like big influencers, we're seeing people within our space starting to do it. Like this weekend, Tia's doing a Hyrox race. So I think this naturally lends itself to members
Oh,
starting to
really?
ask
Oh, wow, that's
themselves,
going to make splashes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And, she did a podcast recently talking about how maybe she starts to look at doing an individual as to challenge herself in this slightly new sport like she's done in the past. So I think that will be very exciting.
Why are all these people, why are all the individual athletes when they do high rocks, they never do an individual? Why is that? They always do like a team.
Yeah, I think there's a level like an added layer of protection in some ways. I would say this that I think team is more fun for the individual athletes.
Oh,
So
okay, right,
when they
right.
go to a team competition, there's not like the same pressure. This is why Wodapalooza gets so much traction in the teams of three because it takes the emphasis off just you. There's a whole moving dynamic.
Interesting. If Tia went single, how good do you think she'd do just right now?
Yeah, so I think Tia is the only CrossFit athlete that could go in, not only make Elite 15, but if she trained for it, also win the Worlds. I think
Interesting.
I believe that Tia is just such a physical phenom that she could transfer very well. And then I've had this thought process a bit before. I don't think any of the guys would transfer actually even into the Elite 15, which is kind of so High Rocks, for example, they're kind of like games athletes within CrossFit is this certain
Mhm.
level, and being an Elite 15 athlete within High Rocks is then another level. As an Elite 15, they have male,
Right.
female 15 athletes, they qualify to the Worlds. Like let's say Jeffrey Adler, who again, great runner, obviously best in the world, one of the best in the world at CrossFit. I don't think he'd necessarily just enter into that Elite 15, but I think something like Haley, Emily Rolfe, and Tia would maybe already enter into the Elite 15. And then I think that Tia has the ability to, if she trained for it, to go out and win the worlds.
And Haley and
I
Emily
actually
both
think,
have running backgrounds as well, and they're a little bit longer. Does that would probably play benefit to this too, right?
Yeah, I think you could look at, say, in the games, who basically was winning the 5K at the games, and you go, okay, this athlete's most likely to have a transfer over to High Rocks. The one thing on the guys is the guys in High Rocks, they're just running very, very quickly relative to our CrossFit guys. So I think it'd be very hard for them to match those paces. But the
what are
girls, I
those
do
pace?
think
What
could.
are those paces for the elite?
So there are a few factors that vary on the course. But, these guys run like 4 minute 1Ks in the
Um,
loops they go around.
Yeah,
which I
I was
don't know how
actually
that
thinking.
translates to miles.
I think Brent Fikowski said he was going to try, and I think just because he's such a taller athlete, um, and he has a pretty good, obviously has a great engine. I think he might do really well because like he can run. He's always been a decent runner, and then once the machines come, he's going to destroy people on those.
Yeah.
Like he's gonna do so well on the rowing skier, but it's mostly I mean a running workout. But that is interesting that you think Tia. I'm yeah. I wouldn't question Tia at anything at this point. If Tia was like, "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
gonna try to make the Olympics for basketball," like she'd probably do it. You can grow 2 feet,
You are.
and then Tia will do it. Like you just don't question it after a while.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
I do agree, and I think so. I like coming back to the question. I actually think these conversations are what fans of the sport of CrossFit start to have, and then that starts going, hey, maybe I try Hyrox, and this kind of leads into this interest in the gym, and that's where I think that's where the
right?
momentum
Well,
starts.
the interesting thing that's different from High Rocks and CrossFit that's like gave it's like it's like a different timeline that CrossFit could have taken that it didn't is that you can High Rocks you can when I say hey let's go do High Rocks you know exactly what that is. It's very knowable and predictable. When CrossFit went down the unknowable and you have to be prepared for anything and it's like the workouts are out of a hopper. So it's these two distinctive kind of paths where I think what Hyrox is showing that is that if there is something repeatable that you can do, that you can go to that's a little bit social, that people do enjoy that. I think the question the naysayers are saying is, well, it'll be a fad in 5 years from now. It won't be there. And I actually looked up the numbers. This is crazy. So in 2017 in Germany, 650 people did Hyrox. This year, they should pass around almost 500,000, right? And it's only because they literally can't have, they don't have enough events. They just, I think there's just a growing company, which if I looked at the math right, that's like 100% year over year growth. So that means next year they should break a million.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm pretty sure they will. It's the growth is pretty crazy to observe, and it's actually now like trying to get a ticket to a High Rocks is a bit like trying to go to some kind of celebrity concert or something. You just can't get tickets. It's like trying to buy tickets to Drake. You've got to be there
right.
when the window opens, when the sign up opens, in order to get your place because. Some of the top race or the bit top, when I say top, like biggest races can hold like 12,000 people. And in London or Chicago or New York, there's the volume's obviously there, so it just goes so quickly.
Right, right. And and when you say tickets, you mean tickets to compete or tickets to just like go and watch? Because I don't know like how spectator friendly it is. Yeah, I haven't been to
Well,
Hyrox yet.
this is another thing that the downside of CrossFit being completely unknown and knowable is everything's always it's really hard to keep improving on the events and where things go and how spectators watch it because you have this element of the unknown and unknowable. Whereas in High Rocks, because you repeat it all the time, they're able to improve the experience not only for the athletes but also for the fans. And it becomes like a relatively interactive experience. So you go in to watch your friend compete, and all the stations will be listed. So you know, okay, that we know that they're going to start on the ski erg. So you go to the ski erg, they run in, you cheer for them. And this is what you see at events. You've got friends, family standing around cheering for their person who's racing. And then you go to the next station and then to the next station, to the next station. So while the person's running, you've kind of got time to orientate yourself. You go wait by the station. And the way the race flows means that you've always got people moving to watch the different stations.
Hmm.
And a lot of the time, the really nice thing is friends and family, they just want to come and support the person who's racing. So throughout the day, be it 7 a.m. or 7 p.m., you've got these friends and family in the venue. They're not waiting for the elite heat or anything like that. They're just there to cheer on their friend.
Okay, and then we're taking a bit of a tangent, but this is a question I wanted. So
Yeah.
this is going to be because I can already see people asking. So let's say let's go to two different experiences, right? So I am a CrossFitter, and again, this is not me. I think all the people doing High Rocks are awesome. This is great, but it's like I remember when everyone was training for a Spartan race, or people were training for 10Ks, or things like that, and it feels kind of like that to me, where someone's like, "Hey, I go to a CrossFit gym. There's this other thing I want to train for, right?" And um, as an athlete, what can I expect? Because I think people understand, okay, with a five, if you're training for like a half marathon, or if you're training for a Spartan race, actually maybe not a Spartan race, but half marathon for sure, like they kind of know what to expect. What can you expect if you pick a date that's coming up and you're like, okay, I'm going to sign up for this Hyrox event. What can you expect in training from now till then?
So I think for a lot of the audience that we speak to, they're relatively comfortable with the stations because we've experienced a lot of them through our CrossFit training. And therefore, the biggest thing that needs to be added in, and I think this is a careful component, is the running aspect. Because a lot of people go, okay, no, now I'm going to be running 8K. And in CrossFit, because we sporadically see running, we're used to it, but we're not necessarily used to that kind of volume repeatedly. And so I think this is where introducing it in a sensible way becomes important, that people don't just go out and start running every day as they go through. And having one thing that CrossFit has always taught us is that variation is very important in the training. And Hyrox actually gives us a lot of options of variability because you can still improve your conditioning. If you've been running one day and that volume's intense, well, we've actually got lots of other options. You've got the row, you've got the ski, the bike erg's really nice thing to mix in there to kind of keep developing the conditioning side of things whilst offloading the running.
And how many, like, let's just say, what would be something an athlete could expect to run a week, like meters? Like,
Ooh, yeah, this is so
this is for me,
the
by the way. Like, if I was like, I have to mentally prepare myself because I hate running. So
yeah,
I have to be like,
I
I have to
actually
convince myself to do it.
I think starting to build in this, let's say you've not been accustomed to running at all. I think even that weekly volume, we start building to 10K the first week. If that goes okay, we take it up to 15. And probably for like the average athlete, they don't need to be doing too much more than that 20 to 30 kilometers a week. And that might be include like a very slow, low paced run. You're not always pushing it hard. And I think this is another interesting thing from the CrossFit side of things. In CrossFit, high intensity is like the our gold standard. That's what we always strive for. Everything we do is for time. We push it hard. Whereas there is maybe a neglected side of this longer, slower conditioning that can actually have some nice transfer and benefit. And Hyrox exposes that a little bit more because it's more on the endurance side of things. So if you go speak to a triathlete or a runner, it's the zone two
I
work that we hear about is their bread and butter.
Right. I would actually argue that if you went and looked at the old school CrossFit Journal and old CrossFit.com programming, that actually happened all the time. It's just that there was like when affiliates got so popular, and I don't think Greg Glassman planned for this. Like if you think about like it's the garage gym revolution, and there's no really articles about affiliates and things like that. I think that it's really hard to fit that into an hour class. So like the 10Ks, like, and I mean, on like literally, like we are the people who could tell you 5Ks get programmed less, 10Ks get programs less. I think a lot of gym owners and we're thinking, well, I'm not going to have somebody pay, two, 300 quid. See how I did that? Uh, and then have people just show up and just go for a run at my gym. And so you saw a lot of people, and then you see what we saw too was that there used to be a time where if there was a workout that would take you 40 minutes, and it would take other people 20 minutes, then you would just say, oh, well, I guess John's going to finish and he'll be showered by the time I'm done. That doesn't happen in CrossFit. Always scale down so everyone's relatively, what's the line? Scale for scale volume, not intensity. So the idea being that everyone can have a 20-minute workout. And then what we've seen is just workouts the longer workouts have kind of disappeared, right? Like we used to do mile repeats all the time.
Yeah.
Like that was a workout in CrossFit, right? Like but you're not gonna see those as much anymore. And I think it's a combination of affiliate programming and gym owners just not wanting to have people do longer workouts because it's harder to fit in the schedule. So I wouldn't like so I'm just wondering if there's like purist CrossFitters out there saying, hey, well, this would be a long workout in 2011 CrossFit, right?
And they would be right. Hyrox is a CrossFit workout that just got standardized. I think it's like someone goes, okay, we're just going to keep repeating Murph as
Which I mean is the most popular workout. It's the most popular workout in the world, I think. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, probably it's the like most people in the world in terms of one workout that's been done is probably Murph.
Yeah, like a couple of years ago, it used to be like Fran. It was Fran, and then that just a couple of years ago went away. Then it was a few benchmarks, and now it's like Murph, and then everything else. Literally, there's people that just do Murph. Like that's literally like
I saw this
just
one guy. He was doing like 365 days of Murph or something like that.
Yeah,
which is pretty impressive.
That doesn't seem
Yeah.
like they're training for longevity. It doesn't seem good.
I mean, even like day 3, but yeah, so okay, so then how long would you say someone typically has to train for to have a respectable, like they can show up and have a respectable time at a Hyrox event and break it into 2 to 3 different types of athletes. One, I'm not really training at all. How long should I expect to train for? 2, I go like I'm sporadic at a CrossFit gym. And the third athlete, like, nope, I'm there 3 days on, 1 day off consistently for the last year. I've never missed. Like for those 3.
Yeah, so I think for the kind of most committed of those, the person who's been going 3 times a week, they could probably jump into the Hyrox with minimal training. It's maybe not going to be the most enjoyable experience for them, but they, and I think that's the beauty of CrossFit is that it does allow you to do lots of different things. I would say that I think a 3-month lead up for most people is nice. You can go through a few cycles. You can make sure you're getting accustomed to that volume of running, and it means that you can approach it in a sensible way over that 3 months period of training for it.
Right. And do you think that is it one of those workouts where just by doing it, if you do it again, you'll do better just because you've done it before?
Yes, I think so. I think that once you've done one Hyrox, you know a little bit about how you're going to feel. A lot of people start out too hot. It's classic. You go, okay, this feels good. And then all of a sudden, at some point, it doesn't feel good. So I think having that experience helps. But yes, I do think there's probably like this point of diminishing returns. So just like any kind of athlete, but when you start, it gets harder and harder to beat your time. But in the first few races, I do think most people see an improvement.
Right.
And then as far as working it into like a tradition, like a lot of these gyms that are CrossFit gyms are just now adding the affiliate to have the title. Like, what does that look like as far as working it into your typical schedule, especially if like someone like myself, like I was a competitive CrossFitter, and then I kind of transitioned to more of the functional fitness stuff. So I do a lot of like more of the functional bodybuilding. I still do a ton of cardio, actually, believe it or not, a lot of sleds and carries and stuff like that. How would you start off by working that into a class schedule with what, training wise and what you would say there?
So we've seen gyms adapt it in 2 ways. One of the most common ways is it's been quite common for 1 day a week, classically a Thursday, to be your conditioning day in a gym. And what we also saw was that was often a day with the lowest attendance because people just took it as a bit of a rest day, or it'd be
That's
the
still
day
a
that
thing.
people would miss.
People
Yeah, exactly.
still cherry pick those days.
Um, and the biggest thing that we noticed is that actually, when you convert that to a Hyrox day and give it a bit more purpose, all of a sudden people then start to see actually, oh, maybe there's something in this, maybe I could start improving. And ironically, Thursdays then start becoming more and more popular because there's a bit more purpose to that style of training. And then another way is introducing like one class per day to go through. And I think this steady introduction is something that's very sensible for a lot of people. Instead of just having your conditioning day on a Thursday, converting into more Hyrox day, or then taking that one class a day throughout the week, so people can start to experience
So
that.
okay, so like a CrossFit gym or any gym for that matter, let's say buys your guys' programming, and you guys program workouts for all 7 days, or what's the format like?
Yeah, so we provide 7 days worth of programming just so the gyms can pick and choose and adapt a little bit. I also think about it as, the gym gets this template that they can then modify how they would like to, which is why we give them the full 7 days. And let's say, gyms might be closed on a Sunday. Therefore, they'll only need 6 of the days and then just kind of choose how they would like. And we then fit it all into 60-minute segments. So it fits that classic class schedule. The workout's designed around that. And we're also the people that we've worked with, we're also very involved in the CrossFit world. Obviously, we've owned gyms and that world. So all our programming is designed for the CrossFit gym, that micro gym, a gym that doesn't typically have like the Globo gym setup with 20 runners and all of this stuff. So the equipment needs are very easy to achieve for someone wanting to introduce Hyrox.
Right. And would you, and this is like a naive thing. I was thinking, all right, if I was a gym owner, what I would do is send out an email saying, hey, there's a Hyrox event in LA in 3 months. I live in LA. In 3 months, we're going to start a class for it. You could fill in how many days a week. If you're interested, we recommend doing it X amount of times a week. We're going to do it as a group, and we're all going to sign up for this event, and we're going to do the event together. Let us know if you're interested, and just put out classes. So how many, particularly like fitness racing classes would you say like a gym should tell athletes to do per week?
So I think if it's balanced, the one thing as well within the programming is like we do have variance within there. So we do strength work, more specific strength work. So we don't worry too much about Olympic lifting or high skill gymnastics. However, there are components, we'll be back squatting, deadlifting, benching, doing pull-ups. So it's still, it's still very well rounded. And we'll still have variation in the days, meaning some days you will be going a bit longer at lower intensity, and then some days will be a bit shorter at higher intensity. So even if an athlete who's used to coming to the gym 5 times a week, they'll still be able to go through the programming and get the variance. It's not just like each day they're coming in and running. They will notice actually that they get the variance, they get their strength cycles in. It just becomes more tailored to this known and knowable event that they're going to be doing. And I think that's the interesting thing is that even, we're so used to CrossFit. Let's say in a CrossFit competition, you can have 200 movements that legitimately could appear. And you guys know more on the data that than I do, but let's just say there's a number of 200. And the variation that you can program within that is so crazy. But actually, Hyrox has these 8 stations and running. And even with these 9 movements, you can also include a huge amount of variation. Even for, you take that down, you go to triathlon. Well, even in triathlon, you have this 3 movements compared to running, which runners see triathlon as having a lot of variation. So for us, when we look at Hyrox, there's definitely nowhere that people can get bored. Your strength is a big factor on the sleds. You need good movement for the wall balls. You need to be able to handle the stations well. So there's so much that you can be working towards this specific factor. And again, for
Right.
people who love data, trying to get specific stations down can then become really exciting. How do I improve my ski erg time compared to last time? How do I improve my row? And it becomes a lot more relevant what you're working in the gym to what you're doing. CrossFit
Right. And we
athletes are
have,
expected to. Sorry.
yeah, I was talking to this gym in same thing at the Rogue Invitational, and they were saying how they're using our Tempest feature where if you have an Apple Watch or if you have you can use it on your phone, you can get all your splits and even your heart rate per movement. And they'll have people go through like those they do like simulations for the Hyrox events, and then people find out where their weakness is, where their heart rate was jumping. Basically, if they did it really bad. What I was wondering is, and again, this is outside looking in, and maybe I'm a little pessimistic because I'm a CrossFitter. Like, how much of like the farmer's carry do you train? It's like a 200-meter farmer's carry, right? Like that can't take that much time out of the hour you're gonna be like there. How it's like a few minutes, right?
Yeah, yeah. So for the top guys, like 90 seconds or so. So
Oh
some of the
wow.
things become about fine tuning, and it may become an objective for some people to go through the farmer's carry unbroken.
Right.
Just like the wall balls can be that for the more advanced athletes. So even within the stations, you are completely right that arguably the farmer's carry is there's really no technical requirements, just like hanging on to two kettlebells and going through. However, there's a certain challenge within that. Like, can I do the farmer's carry unbroken? And
Right,
that's quite
right.
hard. It's quite hard to do. Like when you start, one if you do it under fatigue, and then you just start doing a farmer's walk with in like the pro weights, it's 32 kilos for guys, 24 kilos for girls. It gets a bit of a challenge. So
Right.
there are
I
some
think
things within that.
you've already done like a 6K run and a row somewhere in there and a skier um by the time you get to the carry. So I
Do
can
the
see
top
that.
athletes go unbroken on that? Do you know, like they do?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of the so now the main station that becomes a big divide is the wall balls. So some of the top guys go unbroken, some of them don't. And I think in the next few years, we'll see everyone go unbroken on wall balls because there's no other option.
That's
Like you
literally
want to
like
get to the,
Right.
When Karen was first announced, people would like break it up. Now they do it unbroken and same concept.
oh, sorry,
It's
just
so
it cut
it's
off
so
there.
silly. John, there's a girl named Tony on our team, and she's just one of those people that can like she's just super like she was born doing like just burpees. Like she just has an engine. And when she first started doing CrossFit, we were at the gym and we were talking about Karen, and I was like, "Oh, how are you gonna break it up?" And she was like, and she's British. And she was like, break it up. She's like, what do you mean? She's like, I was just gonna do it. And I was like, I hate you. I hate you with every morsel of my heart. Like, and I think she did. I think she practically did all of Karen Unbroken. And it surprised me that there's just that is I think I think Travis Mayer said he can do like a ridiculous amount of wall balls unbroken, like almost 1,000. Like it's like a ridiculous amount of number, like wall balls he said he can do unbroken. Someone should find that. Like it's like it's almost unbelievable, except like the guy's like a multiple times games athlete, and if you're gonna lie about something, wall balls wouldn't be the thing. So it's like you wouldn't. That's not like a brag for these guys. Um, but and I guess and to the wall ball, and I want to ask you about this specifically. Hiller's always sharing videos of people
Yeah.
doing the most horrible wall balls at Hyrox. What is that? Because I mean, they're objectively really bad wall ball. Like I saw like a one video he shared of like literally a guy's just throwing it up there. Do they, depending on where, what competitive level you are in, do they just not give you judges? Because that's what I was thinking was happening.
Yeah, so at the different levels, they do get stricter. So when people enter the open category, for example, it is, there's less strict judging. Or obviously, when you then go to like the pro divisions, things get stricter. The also thing you have to note is that, let's say one weekend there's like 20,000 people going through a Hyrox event. Even like if you put 20,000 people through a CrossFit gym or through that time, you're probably going to be able to find examples of people not moving well. I mean, anyone who's spent any time in any gym knows that unfortunately movement styles do vary, and you probably can capture it somewhere, but someone's just standing by themselves doing wall balls not in a good way, or the judge has missed it
Right.
for whatever reason.
Right. But I think the argument, just to take the other side, is that if it happens in a gym, we also hate it, and there'll always be those people that will call people out, which I love and hate those people. Sometimes I'm like, hey man, we're all here to work out, but a part of me is like, actually, like that wasn't a push-up, and I kind of respect you calling that person out. Like there's I'm a very big hypocrite in that sense, but I think the argument that somebody like someone in Hiller's shoes will make is the difference is that this is a paid competition. Like I'm paying to show up to get ranked, and like I don't go to my gym necessarily to get like to do an event. And that's why, and again, I don't know how often it happens. It's just
I feel like
it
I
could
guess
just
you
be
could
clips
also
of
make
videos I
that.
see.
I feel like you could also make that same argument with the open too, though.
And people do. And
Yeah,
people really do.
I,
People say that about the open every year. Yeah.
I would imagine if we watched 20,000 videos of the Open, that there would be we would be able to
Sometimes we
find
watch videos of the
some
top 10 of the
crazy.
open.
Yeah.
We've seen those videos. Do you remember the year they did box jumps?
Yeah, well, yeah.
They'll never do, you can't do box jumps. It just turned out that that's like the hardest, one of the hardest videos, things to judge is like watching someone fully extend at the top.
I have another
But, okay,
question for
so
you.
go ahead.
Okay, so testing this event in full, like, is that a thing? Do people do that? Would you suggest doing that leading up to an event?
Yeah, so I don't I don't think you need to do this like every weekend, simulation every weekend. There's no need to do it. And a lot of the athletes now, instead of doing like simulation by self, will go to a race because there's so many available. But I would say for someone who's training 3 months out, yes, I think it's sensible probably to somewhere in that journey to have a simulation day where you've gone through the 8K, you felt the stations, you know how it's going to feel and how the body's going to respond. And then you've got the race coming up. But yeah, I don't think you need to be doing this. Your your training for a Hyrox shouldn't involve a Hyrox every week.
Right. But that is interesting. So okay, so then to get back to for a gym owner, would you recommend gym owners say, hey, that if you are training for this event, just come to the Hyrox classes, and because they'll be CrossFit-esque just with more running? Like,
yeah, I think that's the perfect way. I also, I think there's a few fun things you can do. Like, obviously, one thing that people really love from the gyms is getting together and going to travel to a city. There might be a race nearby, or you get a group of friends who are going to take a flight for a few hours. One of the nice things about Hyrox relative to CrossFit is that it's only a 90-minute event. So you rock up, you do your Hyrox, and then you've got the whole weekend. I was just in Dubai, and it's like you're committed for like multiple days, full 12-hour days. Whereas when you go to the Hyrox event, you're there for maybe 90 minutes and then you're done, which after all these years, I do appreciate.
By the way, congrats. I know you guys, your
Yeah,
athletes are really
thank
well.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're very happy for Luca.
Yeah, no, that was it was great to see him on top of the podium. And so that's a good point. You're there for 90 minutes and then you're probably out drinking or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It seems like it has a very
Which
social.
But this
component
was like
to
more
it.
of the old CrossFit culture, no? That you would go out, hit a workout, there'd be a barbecue and beers would be like
Right. Right.
the classic kind of old school thing, which I think has died down to be a bit more. I think the games created a fashion that every competition needs to be like 3 days long and just have multiple events. And it kind of lost this idea of like maybe just do a competition on a Saturday morning and then everyone goes and has
The
a
biggest
time.
event in most gyms is Murph still. They'll do
Yeah.
if you go to South Brooklyn, they do a barbecue after, and everyone works out. They eat some barbecue. Everyone hangs out. It's still one workout. I would guess it's probably Memorial Day, Murph. Veterans Day will be a big workout. Labor Day in the States will also be a big workout, but it's usually just one workout. Like it is, although it's not seen as a competition because people don't take their sport as seriously.
Yeah.
But to me, it's the biggest quote unquote event that a gym puts on. They'll have like weekend competitions, but people don't nearly show up as that much. And then the Open, actually, I think a lot of people do participate in the Open at gyms, the Friday Night
Yeah.
Lights and things like that.
Yes.
So what about people that say like, hey, you know what? This is just a chipper. This is just a chipper workout. You could just do a 5K program on the side and just go to your CrossFit gym and you're gonna be fine. Like,
I, I mean, in general scheme of things, you would be fine.
right.
But are you optimizing for what you want to do? And there's also this big factor of community. If I'm just doing my own thing and tagging on this 5K, it's a bit of a lonely journey. I've done a few Hyroxes now, and I love doing them in doubles because you kind of share this journey. You have this shared community. You're going through things together, and I think that's one of the nice things about joining in with the class and doing it with the classes. And
Uh, how does the doubles work for the sled pull, the sled work?
uh, in essence, all stations are divided. So you would have the same distances, maybe a bit more weight than the division, but you can divide it anyhow. So everyone does the same amount of running. It's just the stations get divided.
Oh, okay, so like for the sandbags, like you would have to do half, I'd have to do half.
Yeah, or I could actually give you 80% and I just take 20. So
Oh, so okay, yeah. All right. So you could do that. So like for the farmer's carry, could one person do all of the non-running stations?
yeah, and this has been what's been nice about I did it with one of our games athletes, Moritz. And
Oh, you
so
were
everyone
chilling.
has yeah, so everyone has to do the run together. But if I give Moritz more of the station work and then I get to rest, do more of the run, it makes it like an enjoyable or pushable experience for both of us. So that was quite a nice way to do it that Moritz does more work on the ski, I do a bit less, I get a bit more rest, then we can kind of keep going on the run together.
Oh, I got to get on Tia's team. I'll just run.
Yeah,
I'm like
exactly.
Tia. I'm like I'll be there cheering you on, Tia. Let's get that sled done. Okay, so then so a gym. You're saying about 3 months. And you think an athlete should do how many classes? You said about 3 classes a week would be good.
Three's a nice number. I think with three, you're going to start seeing some really nice progress.
What if I
Um,
want to be really competitive? What if you're like, no, I want to go and I want to be as competitive as I can be. Like for that athlete that's like, hey, I'm good. Like they're a good CrossFit athlete right now.
yeah, I think if you can handle volume and you're used to training, then taking up to 6 classes a week is something that is doable on the programming. I would say there's one important rest day that's on there, but we design the programming so it can be done for multiple days. Like
Okay.
there's enough variance in there that it can be managed by people who want to train more.
Right. And then and how many and I think I've asked this before, but I just wanted to be in this interview as well, is that how much equipment does a gym like if I'm a gym owner, I'm about to buy your programming or buy Hyrox programming, like what do I need to run my class?
Yeah, so we have developed a formula. I don't know, is there a way that we can share a link with when this goes out. Like
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So we actually have like an educational document that people can use, and in there we do have this formula, and it's useful for CrossFit gyms. Go, okay, I want to run a class of 8 people. What should I expect to have? And they can kind of base it on. So I want to run a class of 16 or 12 people, and they can kind of have a rough idea with the equipment they have. But we'll provide this PDF, and it's more like an ebook. There's quite a lot of depth of how to engage members for coming into classes, how to prepare for events, and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And then like what would you say is like, hey, if you don't have this minimal equipment, don't even try. Like if you don't have 3 rowers, is it even worth trying? Like for example, if you don't have a skier in your gym, like how do you even train for a set event?
Yeah, obviously it becomes, you lose some element. Like obviously the best thing is to have the equipment. However, that being said, it's not the end of the world. Another nice thing in CrossFit is we're so used to scaling movements, substituting things. And I think we've become quite creative over the years at adapting for either, for people who need to scale because of their level, but also for gyms who don't have enough equipment. Be it they don't have enough sleds. That's a classic one, space for sleds, because most gyms just have like one bit of turf or a small bit of turf. So how do we do that? And we don't have like one scaling option that you can universally apply. We put that option into the programming. So like, okay, here's a few ideas for this specific workout if you don't have this type of equipment.
Right. And then for the sled pull, is there a standard rope that they use? Or they vary?
Yes, they just partnered with Center. He's like a famous actor.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about. He's a really good looking guy.
Hemsworth.
Yeah.
So
but I mean, but the ropes are pretty standard. Like the rope that they're going to use will always be the same rope. It won't be like
exactly. So it's his company is called Center, and every Hyrox event uses Center equipment.
That's interesting. Because he's Thor.
He's Thor.
And he's taking it very seriously. It's just hilarious. And then I'm trying to think, like, Meg, do you have any other questions? I'm just trying to think from a gym owner. Do you think gym owners should charge for this class extra? Or do you think it's just like, hey, it's part of the programming that is involved in their gym? Because sometimes they do. They'll say like, hey, we're having like a specialty class you can sign up for, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I do think it depends on the specific gym model. Like if you've already included extra classes within your programming, then it probably makes sense to keep it that way. Whereas if your model is based on, look, if you want to add on bodybuilding, if you want to add on this, then it could probably quite easily fit as another add-on. One thing I would say that's I think really important is Hyrox isn't just for CrossFit athletes wanting to do something else. It really appeals to runners. And runners have never been very keen on coming into CrossFit gyms because they look at it as a certain way. And we've actually looked as a bit of a Venn diagram where you have CrossFit as one side, runners the other side, and Hyrox actually covers both sections of this. Okay, it doesn't kind of go over to the extremes of CrossFit, doesn't go over to the extremes of running. But for CrossFit gyms, being able to attract a whole new demographic of people, Hyrox isn't such an excellent entryway to that. Appealing to running groups who, obviously they're interested in Hyrox, obviously they're great at running, but they have no idea about the stations. They have no idea how to use a skier, which again, CrossFitters have been probably more so than any other group have been using. Rowers, sleds. These are all CrossFit movements that CrossFit gyms, CrossFit coaches are so experienced in coaching, we can provide a lot of value to runners, this whole demographic that's never even stepped foot in your gym. So I think this is why it's an excellent opportunity to help increase revenue, to help increase the membership base for existing gyms.
Yeah, I was going to add to that too. Again, just using the gym that I go to as an example, we are more of like a functional fitness gym. So we still have a lot of the CrossFit components. We still have the skis and the rows and all the machines. We have sleds. But we are adding this class. We're starting off just twice a week and it's going to be free to current existing members, and anyone that wants to come in, they can do either a drop-in or buy a 10-pack, whatever it might be. So it's a nice introduction. And then hopefully they'll also see the other classes that we offer, like our like actual bread and butter model. And, hopefully that will appeal to them. That's like the goal.
Sorry.
Yeah, Meg, that's a good point in the sense of I'm wondering if this is a great opportunity for CrossFit to actually grow. Because
That's what I'm
I
saying.
think
Yeah.
like if you remember, I want to say there was a time where who was Chuck, who's a fighter? Chuck
Fighter.
I'm trying to remember his name. MMA fighter, first name, Chuck Liddell. Chuck Liddell. So Chuck Liddell, way back in the day, was um, training with John. I don't want to say his last name is Hackelman, if I remember correctly, from the Pit and in Vegas. And he had a CrossFit gym there. And because of them, a lot of people in MMA started getting into CrossFit, and you saw a lot of people just enjoy CrossFit, and they stayed in CrossFit, and like that community came there. And I want to say even Fight Gone Bad was made for them, if I remember this correctly, because I think unless someone made the story up, was that like Chuck Liddell finished a workout and they're like, "What did that feel like?" And he said it felt like a fight gone bad, and they named the workout because he said that or something like that. Which, if that's not the story, we should all lie and say that's the story because it's such a cool story. I mean, it makes us as a community look cooler. So I'm wondering if Hyrox will increase. Like, there's a chance where CrossFit will get bigger because of these events. That in general, people will come in, they'll start training for Hyrox at a CrossFit gym because it's a perfect place to train for it. And they'll say, "Hey, actually, I kind of like CrossFit too, and I'll just do CrossFit as well."
And I think actually one thing I want to kind of develop on that is that actually it kind of safeguards gyms more. No matter what happens to CrossFit, actually you're kind of securing your future because you're entering into something new. You're giving a new service, and exactly as you say, the runners might all of a sudden find a love of being a bit stronger, learning these new accessory movements, and then stay in your gym that's evolving and developing with the times.
Right. Yeah. Right. Right. And I actually think there might be an opportunity where you like, in there might be a world where Hyrox's growth leads to CrossFit's growth because there's just more people getting closer to functional fitness or who need to work in functional fitness. And, CrossFit basically invented that for the masses. And you know what, in general too, I don't think gym owners necessarily need to worry that much about what happens to CrossFit as like an entity because that's how the model was developed, right? Like it is that's the value of being an independent gym, right? Like the relationship you have with CrossFit HQ is they don't necessarily do that much for you. So it seems like, oh, they should be doing more, but at the same time, you don't rely on them a lot. So you've built your own business and you are a CrossFit gym, but it's not like you're McDonald's where you need all of their equipment and you need all of their stuff. You basically run your own business and you use CrossFit because that's a methodology you use. But I bet if you asked a bunch of gym owners tomorrow that if CrossFit, the company, stopped, would their members stop coming in? And I think a lot of them would say no, right? I
Yeah, I
think
would say the growth, like, yeah, I personally don't know if it would cause global growth of the entity of CrossFit, but I definitely think locally within your community, I think that Hyrox could really benefit any of the local gyms in the community.
Yeah, and I think this is one thing, we've run micro gyms, and I say like CrossFit gyms, it's not easy. It's so much work. And honestly, I think being able to attract a new demographic and being able to reach new people is something that could be really advantageous for small gym owners who want to try and increase their membership base. And
Right,
as
right.
as you said, Mo, I
Right.
think this is actually something really important, that the barrier to entry is so low. It's like, why would you not try this?
Right. It's going to be it at worst case scenario, you spend a little bit of money on programming. And then whatever happens, happens. If you hate doing it, you never have to do it again. But to me, it's like if you got Hinshaw programming or someone's running programming or Brian McKenzie's from back in the day, and you did running at your gym, or if you did Olympic lifting. I mean, gyms have Olympic lifting classes. Like CrossFit South Brooklyn has still has like a really, really popular strength. I think the coach's name is Jeremy, so shout out to him. I mean, he's been running this strength class there for. I mean, I'm gonna just throw out like well over 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and every cycle there's a bunch of people sign up, and they go to it, and I don't see this as any different. So why not try it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then what can you so let's say you're a gym owner. Um, what would you say, quick check off list of what they need to do to get started with your program? Obviously, they go be on the whiteboard, sign up, look at the programming. What's next?
Then I think it's so we actually in the PDF we actually have a full checklist of this start list. So I think that link will be really useful for people. But then I think the biggest thing, introducing it into the schedule, making sure members understand what this is, because there are some members who don't necessarily know what the Hyrox is. I also think we mentioned this a bit earlier, but having an event, and this doesn't have to be an official Hyrox event. The gyms can run their own simulation. Let's say we want to try and increase, we're going to run our own little gym simulation in a few months' time. It's just a great way to then start that process of having the class, of having everything going. And what we'll know is that people will get excited about it and will want to go to an official event, be that, close to their gym or travel to go and do it.
Yeah, I mean, I would even tell gym owners, especially gym owners on BTWB, if you use Tempest and you want to charge if you want to set up a simulation at your gym and charge for that as a separate thing on Saturdays, I bet you can get people to show up to your gym and pay you to just run through a Hyrox and then you could, and literally Tempest will give them the entire readout at the end, of every single station they did. They would feel like they get this professional summary of their result. And I
And they
wouldn't
can
be surprised
if they also save that result and they want to race against it again, they can go back and race their previous result that they saved.
Yeah, you can race your go. So there is, I actually think there's even an opportunity for gym owners to just run that class on Saturdays. Right. They could literally just run a Hyrox simulation class on Saturday, charge, I don't know, whatever the drop-in fee they have at their gym. And I wonder how many people would show up for that. I think there is a gym that does that. I forget. It's somewhere in the UK actually, John. I forget where I got to think of their name. But I think they said they do it's a low lift for them and it does fairly well. But great. So then what we'll do is make sure to include all your stuff for the users. What's just so everyone can get right, you want to throw out your social, all the website, everything, so people know where to go to find
so
you.
we have a specific Hyrox social. So it's the Progrm Hyrox on Instagram. Just the Progrm has no A. Honestly, if you type us into Google or find us on Beyond the Whiteboard, we have all the information there. And then in the PDF link or this ebook link we can share, you'll also have a lot of information. It's a free resource for people as well.
Great, great. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. I know we get a lot of gym owners asking about this, and I really hope this is great for gym owners and CrossFitters at the end of the day, or just people that are into functional fitness. It seems really cool. So we'll see. Let's plan to talk again, and you can tell me how wrong I was, or I can tell you how wrong you were. We can go back and forth. I thought it'll be good times.